Today, I want to talk about credit and debt. And the reason why is I feel like there is mounting pressure recently of people piling up tons of debt, and for obvious reasons. I think the economy is getting worse and worse. People are in more and more dire situations. And so they're increasingly turning towards credit to try and make sure that they stay afloat. And I think this is something that is coming to a head very quickly as they're starting to run out of credit. And just as a disclaimer, I think there are some okay forms of credit, like if you are falling behind and you just need something, like some sort of catastrophe happens and you need some sort of coverage between now and your next paycheck, and you'll be able to cover it and everything will be okay. But more frequently, what happens in the society today is that these credits that are lent out, whether it's credit cards or loans, student loans, housing loans, car loans, there are all these types of loans that have insanely predatory rates. And I think that has been a trend that has been essentially doubled down upon with subscriptions to basically everything. And so what I want to do is I want to take a look at a video that Tucker Carlson made recently where he tackles that problem and why it's becoming such an issue now. And what I'll do is I'll add my opinion on top of it, but I want to take a look at it because I think he calls out exactly what the problem is. And I think it's something that a lot more people need to be understanding of and needs to be brought up much more frequently.
But there's another factor that's never mentioned, and that's debt. Young people are totally in hock. They are completely indebted. They have student loans. They were required to get a degree, or told they were required to get a degree to get some job that no longer exists because it's been eliminated or H-1B'd or whatever. The jobs aren't there. Unemployment among recent college grads is out of control.
That's very true. And the other thing too is even people are memeing on it. Even if you don't have a job that traditionally required one, like it's being made fun of that you need a college degree for everything. So like even if you want to Uber or DoorDash, obviously it's a little bit exaggerated, but they're saying, oh yeah, you need college degrees for that. And I think a big component of that is that as people are not able to achieve the jobs that were promised, well, now they're filtering down basically into these other jobs. And what happens then is that when you're competing now, okay, there's X amount of positions in that space, and now you're having to compete against college graduates, people with diplomas for those types of jobs. Well, now even that sector becomes, oh, you basically, to even have a chance at getting one of these jobs, you have to have a degree. And that's just insane to me. Like, that's mind-boggling and is completely out of whack, because what really qualifications do you need to go pick up food for someone who's willing to spend like 3, 4, 5 times the amount than what it would be for them to actually go pick it up themselves? So yeah, that is a huge issue with this whole thing of, okay, it's become so normalized, and because of the, oh yeah, you don't really have to pay anything now. And that's the biggest problem with especially student debt, student loans, is that you go, oh yeah, you don't really have to do anything now, but we'll saddle you with debt for years and years and years to come, and you don't think about it because it's an abstraction, and you're a fresh young adult, if you will. So your brain's not even fully formed until you're 26 years old. And so you're making these decisions with an abstract amount of money that you don't really understand. And again, so of course, a lot of people are able to get them, and because of the financing available, like if you are working your way through college, they could only charge you $1,000, $2,000 maybe per semester, because that's all you could afford. But now that you're able to take out tens of thousands of dollars in loans, well, now they can shoot up the price of that college. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. And that is reflective of our entire society. Car loans, house loans, all, mortgages, all these sorts of things. That is why they're all becoming so expensive, is because it's just this little payment that you have to make now. Forget that it's for the next 30 years of your life. And so that is, I think, very concerning. That's a big reason I think that we find ourselves in the problems that we do now, right? In the situation that we're in now, is because financing has basically dribbled down into everything. They've increased the terms, so you're paying basically forever. And you don't think about, it's just one little thing. It's only X amount per month. But then you're paying way more than that is ever worth. And these companies are incentivized to get you in the loop, in that, that wheel of debt where you just continue running in circles. You have so many loans taken out that you are a mouse on, or a hamster on a wheel in your cage, and you're never actually making any sort of progress.
Of control. Are they becoming more moderate? once they leave college, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt? They followed every instruction they were given dutifully, because young people are actually pretty dutiful. And in this country, young people, some of them are really smart, for real. Talk to them. There are tons of losers, of course, there always are, but the smart ones are really smart and very aware of what's going on. And they know that they've been completely betrayed. They did what they were told to do. And they're shafted. They're literally shafted because they don't have enough income. In some cases, any. So what are they doing? They're going into debt. They have student loans. They have credit.
And I think that's very important, because if you look at already uprisings that have happened, I covered one in Thailand that was basically dubbed the social media revolution. And what happened there is it was a bunch of young, disgruntled men that essentially went and burned everything to the ground. And I think that is a very concerning trend that you have to think about here is, yes, when there are young men who are out in the market and there's nothing for them to do, there's no option, which will continually be, and to Tucker's point, just in that little bit there, to the point that he's made where this is the promise that has been, this is the thing that has been promised to you, right? If you go to school, you'll have a good job waiting for you on the other side of it. Well, if that doesn't exist anymore because AI has come and blocked you, then you're totally screwed. And when that happens and people become more and more desperate, that's when an uprising occurs. And especially, as he's saying, I think it's the more intelligent in that group that are actually going to be the ones to effectuate that kind of an uprising. And I think, once again, this is more and more likely as just the elites become more and more detached from what's actually the reality. And you see this, you don't even have to talk to elites, right? I know many people who are older that I have talked to that they just totally discount all of the struggles that new grads and younger people are having. They don't think it's real. They don't, because they're just sitting with their stock portfolios. They've retired, they're near retirement, and they just, it's so easy nowadays. But in actuality, no, they have it way harder than those older people ever did. Now add another layer of detachment onto that of, it's an elite, right? All the people making the policies. Not only do they have that cognitive dissonance of, there's no way, everything has advanced, everything seems easier, right? They think it's easier, but no, the market that they came up in was not nearly as predatory as the one that exists now. And with the constant layoffs, with all these are all jobs that should be available to the new graduates that have been completely cut from the market. And so, yes, it may seem easier because now those boomers who have basically made it to retirement before this started happening, yes, okay, it's easier for them and they don't have to think about any of this. But if they had to start again all over now, I think they would see, it's very difficult. And I, of course, would love to, go back to the time where I actually started in. And so these people are just completely detached. They have no ability to put themselves in the shoes of anyone else. And that's basically the situation that these young people are finding themselves in is that, again, there's so much detachment, and they should be able to understand, oh yeah, what are the struggles and how can we help these people out. But the lawmakers and the people who can actually effectuate that change are doubly removed from this situation, and they don't see anything as wrong. But thankfully, there's people like Tucker and other people like him who are saying, no, like, this is actually a problem.
Card debt, and of course now there are all these other ways to borrow money that are disguised. Buy now, pay later. What's that? You're going into debt, of course. And what's so interesting about this, and this is a problem primarily on the right, though not exclusively, is that no one has sympathy for them at all. Conservatives, you hate to say this out loud, but it's true. Conservatives have been trained to blame the borrower, not the lender. It's like...
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's just, I think it's not just blame. I mean, it is, right? And he's 100% correct. But it's also that cognitive dissonance of, no, I had to have had it hard. It was so difficult. No, actually it wasn't. You had a lot of opportunities, and you could be uneducated and still fulfill the American dream. Whereas now, that is much less the case. Like, the actual idea that you can you have to basically almost win the lottery now to be able to get in someplace, basically find somewhere that's not already replacing you with AI, get your foot in the door, and then make it through before you get replaced, and accumulate enough experience and stuff so that you're actually valuable in the workforce. And that is the biggest issue is, yeah, these things didn't exist at all. The rampant greed, just in the last 5 years, the rampant greed from these companies has made it almost impossible for anyone to, it's all layoffs, everyone's trying to juice the stock, and that was something that flatly just did not exist when these boomers were coming up, and they, what did they do for their careers? And so the landscape is just catastrophically different. It's orders of magnitude more challenging today to have a steady job, and it's almost impossible to work somewhere for the entirety of your career. So yeah, and that's why it's so annoying to listen to boomers and their take on it, is because, again, they're just totally detached. They have no realization what the market actually looks like today.
A feature of the mindset. Well, you took the loan, you got to pay it back. It's your moral duty to pay it back. Pay back what you owe. Don't be a deadbeat. Okay, fine. Get it. Like it. But is it really that simple? No, it's not. Because the relationship between borrower and lender is inherently symbiotic. One cannot exist without the other. What other relationship is like that? What other fraught, sad, disease?
And that's what I've been saying recently, is that, yes, if these options did not exist, it would actually be a much healthier system, because all of the costs would have to come down. And yes, at a certain point, there is some subset that are taking advantage of this lending and these loans that are able to go into it, and they may not have been able to go into college, but there's a loan available, and okay, it is allowing. And quite honestly, I'm probably in that group because I had to pay my own way for my college. But if that did not exist, the prices would come way down. And so yes, okay, I would have to work a job for a little bit, and then I would have to go to college, but I wouldn't have come out with, XYZ debt. And that's exactly it, is that now the people who are running these institutions go, we realize that we can take advantage of this and we can squeeze them as hard as possible. And that's why you see tuitions for colleges just on a wild tear. And so that is the problem with it, is that when you allow these types of financing mechanisms into place, well, then who cares, right? We can charge them as much as possible, and yeah, it screws them over for a long period of time now as the prices have crept up. And so that's why I say yes, I 100% think they should wipe out all of these types of loans, and then you'll see how valuable these types of programs and, things that you're purchasing, like cars, like school loans, like school, college in general, like houses, how much these things are actually worth. Because it's who can afford it, not who can finance it and put themselves in basically unending debt forever.
Eased relationship is like that. Well, addict and pusher. Of course. You can't be a drug addict unless someone sells you drugs. And yet, we understand the complexity of that relationship, and we punish both. In fact, we punish the drug dealer more harshly than we punish the drug addict because we understand that the drug dealer is making all this suffering possible.
And I love that equation between the two because I think that's so important. Like when you look at it and you say, yes, there's the symptom, right? Which is, oh yeah, people's credit scores have the biggest drop since 0809. There's, the amount of debt per household. There's people missing payments. There's all these different things, right? So that 100% makes sense. But then who's enabling it? Why are these companies allowed to do this? Oh, because they have giant lobbying firms and they basically pay off all of Congress. And so, of course, they're going to be allowed to operate. They're going to be allowed to do shady things like in 08, 09. Why did that happen? Oh, because they're allowed to just go off and take it as much advantage of the population as possible and juice their own numbers and make all these risky speculations and all this kind of stuff, and they were not controlled. And I think, again, that parallel between drugs and credit is a good one because both of them are immensely devastating on households. And they both have a bunch of negative things that rise as that increases. So, as financial hardships increase, there's a bunch of negative side effects on families. It breaks up families. What's the number one reason for divorce is financial hardship. Same thing with drugs. Drugs, as it increases, you make worse choices. There are very many parallels between the two, and it's very eyebrow raising that yes, in drugs we correctly identify that, hey, the drug dealer is probably worse because they're the ones supplying it and ruining all these lives than the people who are using. But when it comes to banking, they've done such a good PR job that, as Tucker pointed out, Republicans especially are just, oh yeah, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You shouldn't have made those bad decisions. But like I said, in that relationship, the people who are taking out the loans, again, their brain is not fully formed until they're 26. And so how can they actually understand and credit? The other thing that I do not like about credit, because there's a parallel to something that they do in video games where it's an abstraction of the amount of money that you're actually spending. Like if you said, okay, here's a pile of $50,000. Do you actually want to give this to an institution to get a degree? You would be much more hard pressed to actually part with that amount of money. But when it is, oh yeah, it's just some vague amount of money that I don't even look at, and I'm really just financing it one semester at a time, well then, oh yeah, I don't really have to think about what the actual end amount of this money is that I'm actually going to be responsible for. And so it's actually two levels because it's as you go, right? You're not taking it out for the entire 4 years. So you're not saying, oh yeah, this is going to be $50,000, $75,000. You're saying, oh yeah, it's just, $10,000 for this semester or whatever, whatever it is. But yeah, again, it's a time abstraction where you're not seeing it all as a lump sum, and then it's a credit thing where you're not actually handing them the dollars, which would be much more painful, and you would be much less likely to actually pay that amount for the schooling. But circling back again to the actual, financiers versus the people taking out the loans, yeah, they should be blamed just as much because it can have just as many negative effects on the borrowers. It basically just keeps them underwater for ever? Like, when do you actually end up paying off your student loans? There are people literally dying who still have student loans, and it's just insane to me. It's literally the only debt that you can never get rid of. Like, if you file for bankruptcy, you can't get rid of student debt. And so it's just insane to me, like the entire system as it is, and they should be viewed, again, it's just great PR that they're not viewed in the same light as a drug dealer versus someone doing drugs. And they should be penalized just the same, because there are so many negative effects on our entire, the entire United States, essentially.
We feel sorry for the addict. Well, he's an addict. We can punish him. And by the way, throwing him in jail might be the only way to sober him up. It might save his life. And we should. For his own sake and for ours. Stop breaking into my car. Got it. But the drug dealer, well, that we reserve our rage for him, because he's the one doing it. He's taking advantage of the weak. And that's all true. And that's appropriate to feel that way. It's exactly right. But we don't feel that way about credit card companies or student loan vendors or the guys who are literally offering buy now, pay later for DoorDash. Some unemployed or underemployed college grad went to some crappy college, got a worthless degree because he believed in it. Now he can't get a job at JP Morgan. He's never going to get one. And we are telling him it's totally cool to buy sushi on credit. What? He shouldn't buy sushi on credit, obviously. That's dumb. But he's a kid. Who's worse? The guy who borrows the money or the guy who loans the money at some ridiculous rate?
And I think that's the part of it that is the most damning about the entire argument. Because, yeah, the rate is where you just completely lose me. Because, again, I see some value in, okay, you sustained a hardship. Maybe you are kind of running paycheck to paycheck, but you have a little bit of breathing room, but you haven't really set that much money aside, and then you have some sort of blowout on your tire or something catastrophic happens to your house. And so, yes, you do need to take on some sort of debt in the short term, but if you kind of change some of your spending habits, you can pay it off over a certain amount of time. Again, there are arguments that, yes, something like that would be nice to exist. But where you lose me in that argument is when the rates are insane. Like when you're charging upwards of 20 to 30 to 40 to whatever percent. Like when you have that kind of, you just literally are never going to catch up. There's absolutely no chance for you to catch up and actually pay off all of that amount of money. And that is exactly it, is that at that point in time, it becomes predatory and completely indefensible. And again, because it is so, it's trickled down into everything, because it is like, you have to take out a loan for your car. You have, like, even if you're trying to avoid these things, you probably have a loan for your house, if you can even afford a house. You probably have a loan for your car. You probably have school loans. You probably have at least one credit card that's not completely paid off. I mean, that right there is 4 super essential things that you need, not counting the other things that are usage-based, where it's like, oh yeah, electricity, water, internet, if you have any sort of cable subscriptions or streaming services for entertainment. Like, there are all these things, again, that's just, it's slowly eating away at how much money you have, and you don't think about it. And then, yeah, it's all of these things, again, especially in the component of the loans, right? The first few things that I talked about, all of them are just getting more and more predatory. They're all going in a direction where it's getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point in time, something is going to need to come to a head where we just say, enough is enough. This is absolutely ruining. It's driving up the prices for everything, and it's making things unobtainable for anyone who's coming up, because they immediately, the second that they become an adult, they're saddled with tens of thousands, if not 100,000 plus, of loans, depending on where they go to school.
Payday loans in this country, there are payday loans that have a 600% annual interest rate. And we kind of ignore it because we're like, who would take a payday loan?
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And even the examples I used before was 20, 30, 40, whatever percent, right? And payday loans, that is the exact example of what I'm using where, oh yeah, something occurs and okay, I need to go get this loan to kind of stem me over and pay for something that just popped up. And so I can't really finance it through a bank, right? They're not going to give me that type of loan. So I have to go out and get a payday loan. But again, 600%. 600% is insane. There's literally no way you're going to do that. Like imagine you take out $1,000 loan and then by the end of the year you own $6,000. Like how can you possibly pay that back? If you were able to pay that back, you wouldn't have needed to take out that loan in the first place. And so that's why it's so disgusting. And again, because of the rate attached to that, that's why it's completely indefensible. Again, the model is defensible if it made sense. Like, oh yeah, we're going to charge super low, a single digit rate where you can actually pay it back. We get some of the money back, but we want to provide a good and a service for you. And, we want to do good for the people who are actually taking it out. This is not that. Payday loans are not that. And when you're seeing a 600% interest rate on it, again, it's completely indefensible. It's no longer trying to provide a good or service. It's being predatory for predatory's sake, for greed's sake. And that's what's going on.
That's like a ghetto thing. Okay, fine. It's a ghetto thing. But who would do that to the ghetto, actually? Who would do something like that? If somebody said to you, you can make a pretty good living exploiting and degrading people, destroying their lives, would you do it? Hope not. But if you did do it, the rest of us would have a moral obligation to say, you are disgusting. That's disgusting what you're doing.
And that's the thing that's why I argue against it the most, is that it does truly target people who are not even ghetto, right? But the most desperate. They have to turn to these sorts of things because they either made some bad decision or whatever, right? And there is some component of it where you go, well, each person is responsible for their own actions. But at the same time, just the system is way too perverse. Like exactly what Tucker is saying, where it's these people are preying upon them. I don't know what has happened where there's some subset of people who are making money off of these sorts of things, but somehow it's just normalized that you can take advantage of people and you just don't care. Like for whatever reason, the people that are, providing payday loans and setting up these sorts of financing schemes, they just don't care. Same thing with like Pharma and Oxycontin Express and all that kind of stuff. It's the exact same thing here where you just go, apparently there's some set of the population that doesn't care about ruining the lives of some subset of the population just so that they can make some money. And it's completely disgusting. I don't know how we allow this to happen because it is truly the exact same thing. Like I said, the perfect parallel here is it's a white collar crime. It literally is. The Oxycontin Express, in my opinion, was a white collar. You go, you get a prescription, you get pain pills, and you're addicted to them. Same thing here, whereas you're going to a financial institution. I'll use that term loosely if we're talking about payday loans, but really any type of loan. You put yourself in debt for the rest of your life, and then you're struggling. Because the thing is, at a certain point in time, when you're being issued these, and I had a very real upfront close look at it because I had someone that I was dating get entangled in one of these things. But what happens is they look at what your financial reality is, and they say, oh yeah, you're making this amount of money. And then they'll issue you a loan. And then, oh man, it's so hard for me to keep up. And, I have the one payday loan, and then to keep up again because I dip down and it's just difficult for me. So then I take out a second payday loan. And then it gets to a point because they're so unscrupulous. And this is literally what I saw, where 100% of the person's paycheck, because they came to me and they're like, hey, I messed up. Like, this is where I'm at. They came to me, and 100% of their paycheck was essentially all payday loans and then all their subscriptions and credit cards. And that was 100% of what they were making. And at the time, it wasn't like an awful paycheck. But because they had so many subscriptions and payday loans and credit cards, that was 100%. And so that was not accounting for living. That was not accounting for food. That was not accounting for utilities. That was not accounting for. And that's the thing, is they will continue, because it's predatory. It's 100% predatory. They will look at what is the maximum amount that you can afford to pay. They don't care if you've already taken out loans from them and, okay, there's no real way that you could actually pay us back. They're more than happy to just continue issuing you loans. And that's where you get screwed. Because then, again, 100%, you're not even able to keep up. Like, you're completely underwater just with payday loans almost at that point in time. And so that's why I'm so against them, is because I have gotten a firsthand look at what they're willing to do, at how they're willing to set you up with an unaddressable amount of debt. Like, there's literally no way that you could ever pay back any of this. And so that, without help from a family member or friend or something. And so that is why I again, having a firsthand look at it, I can say, yes, I'm firmly against it. I think it is on par, if not more evil than drug dealers. Because drug dealers, at least they're just, here you go, buy. They're not financed. If drug dealers offered financing, then they would be on par with payday lenders. But because you can only afford what you can purchase, yes, okay, they might have stolen from friends or family or whatever, but they're not offering you, hey, we'll give you these drugs and then I'll break your legs if you don't pay me later. I mean, there is some of that, but you can't do it to the level that payday loans, student loans, mortgages, auto loans, that these types of companies can over leverage the person who's borrowing.
And we don't. And we especially don't on the right, because it's immoral to criticize banks or something because you don't believe in free markets. Well, yeah, I wish we had them. Of course I believe in free markets. Where is the free market in the United States? When you find it, you got my cell. But what we have to be against, and this is more important than whatever you believe about the effectiveness of relative economic systems, we have to be against exploiting and crushing people. And if we're not, then what are we doing? And it's not even a matter of banning it. It's a matter of saying it's disgusting. 30% interest credit card? And that's totally fine? I must have done 15 segments at Fox News about how Joe Biden's real sin was making credit card debt non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. Oh, who cares? Well, you're against capitalism? If you want to make people against capitalism, let that shit continue. And they will absolutely vote for Mamdani.
And that's why I've been making a bunch of economy videos recently, is because I feel like this train has run completely off the tracks in every single sense of just the total economy. Everything has run off the tracks. And that's the biggest problem with it, is that they've been allowed to do whatever they want and get away with these predatory schemes. And now just people are in the worst way imaginable. And so that is going to turn everyone against just how, oh yeah, communism has never worked. Well, you're basically proving out that capitalism is not going to work as well. Because when you're seeing the current state of America, where it's literally just people allowed to go into finance, which is basically just, how can we extract, like, there's good components of finance, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, putting money away and, providing flexibility for people and that kind of stuff. But then there's also the predatory portion of it, and that is winning out above everything else. That's why housing is completely screwed. That's why healthcare is completely screwed. It's because there's these private equity firms that just go in and say, how can we squeeze? And that's exactly what's going on with loans right now. How can we squeeze people? How can we over leverage them as much as possible so they're basically spending all of their life paying us just a constant flow of money? That's why they just recently lengthened it to, I think it was like 144 months on auto loans, because how can we get you to continually pay us money forever and ever and ever? And so now you're just a constant revenue stream. You're no longer a person. You're just someone who's providing us a forever subscription fee. And that's how you're viewed.
And they have, by the way, they have. So if you want to understand why young people are getting radical, one of the main reasons is they are being exploited by the most unscrupulous, richest people in our society and then being blamed for it.
And that's exactly it too. And that's why it's so annoying to me, because they are the richest people in the society. Anyone who's participating in these sorts of activities like private equity, like banking and lending and this kind of stuff, they're all making enormous sums of money. And those are most of a good deal of the richest people in the country. And so when you're seeing that, that is then the incentive, is to say, okay, well, if I want to be successful, now this is where I want to go. And this is what I have to do. And basically what I have to do is find ways to screw people out of their hard-earned money. The people who are actually contributing to society, I have to figure out a way to squeeze pennies out of them so that I can be one of the richest people. And the other component about that I think people do not really address is that provides brain drain. And if you don't know what brain drain is, essentially it is, in this context, all these people who are working as hard as they can to figure out how to extract the maximum amount of money from the average American, think about if their brains were being used to do something positive, like cure cancer, like any of these things where you could be doing something to actually further the good of humanity. Anything where there's a problem where, hey, we could use someone really smart to be in that field and try and advance it for the next generation. Well, now they're not doing that because the profit incentive, there's no money in that. Where the profit actually is going into finance and finding out how to separate everyone else from their money. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're incentivizing. And that's why it may sound extreme when I say we need to destroy private equity, we need to completely shut down the stock market, but because that is what I think the biggest problem is we are not going to be the technological leaders. We are not going to be the nation that is miles ahead of everyone else. And that's why we're getting caught up to by the likes of China, is because we don't have those people actually going out and trying to do anything revolutionary and anything new and anything innovative. No, what they're doing is they're trying to find ways to make money off of the backs of everyone else in this country. And that is what pisses me off more than anything, is think about how much further we could be as a nation if we got rid of these dumb finance jobs that provide absolutely no value to the society at whole.
And no one says a word about the rich, unscrupulous people who are doing this because everyone's taking money from them. And you saw this in the last administration, the liberal administration. So the idea was, and it's true, young people are being destroyed by student loans. Okay, that's true. Who's benefiting from that? Well, the colleges, of course, are benefiting, because it's allowing them to hire more administrators than they have professors. It's allowing them to live in this kind of fantasy world where they build this incredibly beautiful little biosphere in the middle of some economically depressed hellscape in a rural area. That's true of like every New England college. Bates College in Lewiston. Ever been to Lewiston? Bates is beautiful. Why? Because they're participating in this scam, of course. Backstopped by the federal government, by student loans. So they're
and that's 100% true. Like, I dated someone who went to USC, and campus, immaculate. The second you get 10 feet away from campus, absolutely disgusting, homeless people everywhere. Like, you're very concerned about walking down the wrong street in the USC area. And that's exactly as he's saying. Like, even if it's not like rural and, nothing around it, you can have a very nice campus and then literally across the street you have homeless people and drugs and all sorts of stuff going on that just is the dregs of society. And that's exactly to his point. That is all being stood up by how much money are you paying to do undergraduate at USC? It's not cheap.
Beneficiary. They're the loan shark here, actually. And so were the companies that are getting rich from this. But what was the Biden plan? The Biden plan was to stick taxpayers with the bill for bailing out students. So they identified the problem correctly, which is kids are getting completely screwed. That's terrible. And it's preventing them from having productive lives, getting married, buying houses. It's hurting them. So who gets to fix it? You do. You've got nothing to do with it. You're probably paying your own kids' tuition, but you get to bail them out.
And that's what made me the most angry about this. Is twofold, right? Number one, because I had student loans, I had credit, I basically had to completely strap down and do nothing for years to be able to pay all of that off. I live very frugally. And so I did that. I paid my dues. I paid off all mine. And now you're telling me that I have to pay off someone else who took it out. And again, going back to my initial argument, yes, I completely understand. I do not think that these loans should exist at all. But the thing that makes me the most angry, I could bite the bullet and say, okay, we'll do it. But they're not actually changing what caused this problem. They're just trying to pay off the people currently to say, hey, come out and vote for us. And so if there's no systemic change of, well, we're not going to allow students to take out loans to go to college anymore, well, then you're just going to saddle them up again. And then what? I'm just going to have to bail them out every 4 years when you need more votes for an election? Absolutely not. And so that is the thing that pisses me off is, number one, that I already paid. I made all the right decisions to pay my own off. And then now you're not even changing anything. You're not actually fixing anything. You're just going to try and provide a bailout every 4 years to garner votes from a subset of the population that you think will help you win the office that you're running for. And so that was the thing that I absolutely... It's completely unfair to everyone that has already paid off their loans. What do I get? Are you going to give me a check for the amount that I paid that you would have paid off if I wasn't so responsible and I wasn't paying it down so aggressively? Were you going to do that for me? So big middle finger to you, F you. How is that fair to me? And then you're not changing anything. You're literally not changing a thing. So this is just going to continue to happen over and over again. And that's where I just say, no, I'm completely disinterested. That's why I would bite the bullet if we said we're actually going to change it and we're going to bail out all the people who got screwed. Yes, I would still be angry about that, but the way that they're doing it, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Who's not blamed or punished? The beneficiaries, the lenders. Because you can't criticize the banks, can't criticize the universities. Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because it's not exclusively their fault. It's primarily their fault. And they've dodged all responsibility, just like everyone who's made life-destroying decisions in this country over the past 20 years. The truly guilty have escaped not just punishment, but criticism. Yeah, that can't go on forever. And in the meantime, it's creating a whole new audience, not just for Fuentes, but for a lot of increasingly radical people, because that's what happens when you mistreat people and then attack them for not liking it, is you make them radical.
And so that was basically what I wanted to cover. I thought it was just a very interesting take from Tucker, right? It's something that I've been thinking a lot about, especially as we are starting to see the economy get worse and worse recently. I think it's something that, yes, people are going to have to turn more towards credit, and they're getting in deeper and deeper debt, and that is a trend that's only going to continue. And so doing what I can to call it out and say, hey, this is something that needs to be paid attention to, I think is important. I think it's something that people need to understand. I think it's something that, especially in the school loans, as you're seeing, oh yeah, you're coming out of college and you're not even able to get the sort of white collar job that I was even able to, right? I had a little bit of a tougher route to it, but I did get there and I was able to make it. But the thing about that is I'm not even sure that's available anymore. And so it's something where I think you need to look at it and you need to say, is this even a value proposition that makes sense to me? I don't know that I could endorse it anymore. Looking at, again, when I went, yes, it turned out good for me. But now, if you're coming out and you're just doing Uber or DoorDash or something, is that really what you went to college for? That's not a skilled labor. That's not something that you need a degree for. And so, again, it's just a very dire situation. As Tucker called out, I think people are becoming more radicalized against it, and they will continue in that direction. And that is a way, it's so funny because, yeah, you always see people calling out, oh yeah, communism is the worst. And it is very bad, right? Because it never, it's basically the broken promise, right? Because at the heart of it is, oh yeah, everyone has the same, but what actually in actuality happens is, oh yeah, the people at the top take all the money and they end up with everything and everyone else ends up with a very low standard of living. But more and more as time goes on and we see late stage capitalism taking its full form, well then you say, how is that actually any different than what is going on in a communist society, where you have the oligarchs and the elites at the very top who have all the money, and then there's everyone else who's basically pecking at scraps. And I feel like that's the direction that we're going in. And then how is that actually any different than communism? Yes, it has a different name, but functionally it's exactly the same as how that has played out. And yes, maybe it has taken a longer timeline to get there, but we still are trending there, if not already there, all the same. And hopefully there's some sort of rubber band back where we end up in a much better place, but right now I'm hard pressed to see how that happens. Anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this from me, hit the subscribe button down below. It really does help my channel grow. And if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.